Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Cheryl Mkosi and today I'm doing a story time on why I left YouTube. So let's get into the video.
Still got your things here. They stare at me like souvenir. Don't wanna let you out my head. Just like the day that I met you, the day I thought forever said that you love me.
Okay, so here goes the story. So this all started happening between 2020 and about 2022, 2023. So initially, as you've probably seen from the thumbnail, a lot was just happening with my health and I didn't have answers. I didn't know what was going on. I kept going to doctors and they couldn't find anything wrong with me, but I had various manifestations physically, such as the breaking out of my skin. My skin was literally breaking and I would bleed. I'd have sores all over my face, my back, my arms, my stomach. And then I eventually went to a dermatologist in South Africa. I first went to a dermatologist in Zimbabwe and she gave me some weird medications that just made my skin worse, and my what then was just like bad acne turned into the worst acne. Then I went to a different dermatologist in South Africa who put me on Roaccutane. So I was on Roaccutane for, I don't know, maybe 3 months, and it was really helping with drying up the acne, but my face was like that of a burnt person. So the complexion that you're seeing now, imagine I was about maybe 6 shades darker than I am now. I looked burnt. I didn't look like myself. So I couldn't come to YouTube and be confident in my appearance because I think, as you guys know, I generally like to come barefaced. I like to come to YouTube barefaced and I like to feel confident in my skin, and I just wasn't confident in my skin at that time. So these manifestations got worse and worse over time. I started losing clumps of my hair. It was just strange. And I'd wake up with random bruising on my arms and on my legs, and no one could explain to me what was going on. Eventually, this turned into non-epileptic seizures. Initially, they thought I had epilepsy. So then I was put on epilim medication and it helped for a little bit. And then I moved countries and then I started getting grand mal seizures. I would just pass out in the middle of the road, crossing the street. It was the scariest time of my life. And I've never felt so, surrendered to death. I genuinely thought that this was my end, that this was my time, that God had ordained this. I was very close to giving up on myself. And it's very scary to admit that, because when I think back to that time, it was such a dark time and I didn't really feel as supported as I would have liked by the people around me. But honestly, I wasn't telling them the full picture of what was going on, so they couldn't support me in the way that I needed anyway. So after the whole skin manifestation thing, me being put on Roaccutane, I started getting stomach issues. And from the stomach issues, I went to a gastroenterologist in South Africa. They did a scope. They found out that I had a hiatus hernia, a sliding D type of hiatus hernia, which simply means that at the top here of my stomach, it's going to slightly protrude a little bit because there's a hernia that pushes through my stomach, and eventually at some point I may need surgery, but for now I'm on medications that help keep that at bay. So while all of this was going on with my health, I thought it couldn't get worse. So about 11 years ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was not put on any medication for it. I was just managing the pain with over-the-counter painkillers whenever I had a flare-up. And it seemed to work for a few years until about 2020. And then when the flare-up started, I would swell. I'd get really swollen in extremely hot weather or in extremely cold weather. So in extremely hot weather, my legs would get swollen. In extremely cold weather, I would feel pain in my bones. It was the most honestly horrific pain that I could imagine. Not as bad as childbirth, but or labor, but it's pretty close for the mommies who watch my channel. So I then went to an allergy specialist because remember, I've seen a dermatologist, I've seen a gastroenterologist, but I still have all these skin issues and I was itching a lot and like there was just a lot going on. So this was an allergy specialist, a physician, and I forgot what else he specializes in. I don't remember. But I went to see this doctor and he diagnosed me with systemic sclerosis. We did some blood tests and I was put on steroids, and the steroids made my skin worse. I lost so much weight. My head looked like a bobblehead on the body of like, I looked like a lollipop. Like my hair was big, my body was small. I felt so ugly. Like I was just so insecure about my appearance, and I didn't think that I could produce content on YouTube. I was still producing content on Instagram because I had the filters, and I don't know if people noticed that I was using a lot of filters at that time, but I was using a lot of filters because of what was going on with my health. And again, this treatment, it didn't really seem to work. So at some point we spoke with this doctor and he said, look, there's two options. The first option is you either go on oral chemotherapy. It's an option for you, but let's give this treatment a couple more months. Or you start planning a family and eventually have a child. These symptoms will go away. And I looked at this man and I was like, sir, you're telling me having a baby, a whole human, is going to fix all of this. And then I still have to look after said human for the rest of their lives. It's not like I'm going to have a baby, I'm going to give birth, and then that's the end of their story. This meant two new chapters. A new chapter for this child that I would have given birth to, and a new chapter for me as a mother. So I was like, absolutely not. Then 2021 came, continued on my treatment. Then I just decided to default. I stopped taking everything. And I went then to a different physician in South Africa, explained everything that was going on. They did their own test and they're like, no, we don't see signs of systemic sclerosis. Yes, your skin was hardening. You had all the symptoms of systemic sclerosis. And I also started getting motor loss. So sometimes my limbs would just move on their own. So like my arm would just be like doing this by itself, or my legs would do that. Coupled with the seizures, the skin breakouts, the stomach issues, migraines, insomnia, there was a lot that was going on. So I then saw this physician in South Africa who said, you have the symptoms of systemic sclerosis, but it's not systemic sclerosis. You're probably under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. They asked me what I do for work. I explained my situation at the time to them, and they're like, look, if you've already stopped taking the medications, that's good, but you should have tapered off. And I was like, well, I just quit cold turkey. And they're like, you're going to have a lot of issues. You're going to have withdrawal and all of that, which I did have. Now that I think about it, I didn't realize I was in withdrawal. It just felt like the normal illness that I was going through. But like my health took a turn in the years 2020 and 2021. And in 2022, I was getting a little bit better, but I was still on my Roaccutane. No, I was no longer on the Roaccutane. I was taking something for sleep, and then I started partying hard. You know, I didn't feel beautiful, and I like to go barefaced. So at this point, I didn't care anymore. I would just go out as I looked. I wouldn't make eye contact with people because I felt like, why? I'm not pretty. Why would anyone even give me the time of day? So I'd go out with my family, I'd go out with my cousins, and we'd party until I just stopped. And I decided to give all of that life a break and just focus on getting better, focused on my health, focused on eating better, having a more active lifestyle. And I then moved from Zimbabwe to Kenya, and I've been in Kenya now since 2022. And honestly, as you guys can see, my skin has improved. I did not do any work that requires medical attention. I didn't take any medicines for my skin. I didn't take any medicines for the systemic sclerosis or for the acne. I just decided to be patient with my body and patient with my skin. And I started using La Roche-Posay products. I started using La Roche-Posay products, and they were gentle enough on my skin. They really helped clear out my skin. And yeah, so basically, this is the story of why I left YouTube for a very long time. My health was in shambles. It was such a dire time, and I just felt like I couldn't face the world at that time. A lot was happening. You know, the thought of being on oral chemotherapy, having to explain to people why you are doing chemotherapy but you don't have cancer. And also just, I had so many people commenting on my weight, on my skin, and it was just so much pressure, and it was so difficult to try and explain what I didn't even understand myself. But I just thought I'd come and share the story with you, and hopefully the story can empower someone that you can get through whatever situation you're in. I got to a point where I would get temporary paralysis. At some points, like when I'd be in hospital, I'd need a wheelchair. I was a shell of the person that you're seeing today. And today I'm a living testimony of what God can do. So I'm just grateful. I'm so thankful that I'm where I am today. I'm doing so much better. My health is better. A lot has changed in my life as well. And hopefully with time, I'll let you guys know what's going on in my life. But for now, thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, see you in the next one.